I want to go to my next guest, and I'm happy that he can join me. I am joined with, and I want to pronounce this correctly because I had this screwed up in the calendar. I fixed this in the calendar, by the way. Robert Fantina. Did I get that right? I want to
Good
make sure I
enough.
got that right.
Good. It's Fantina.
Fantina.
Right.
Okay, Robert Fantina. Thank you, Robert Fantina. He is an author, journalist, activist, working for peace and social justice. He is author of the book Settler Colonialism in Palestine and Kashmir. By the way, Robert, do you have a new book coming out or anything like that? I ask because I always want to make sure the calendar is up to date.
Nothing new. I'm working on my PhD right now, and when I finish that, there'll be a book.
Are you?
Yes.
I know some people don't like to talk about what their books, documentaries, PhDs are on, but can I ask what that's on? If you could tell me.
I like talking about it. Yes, I'm studying. It's a sociology department, and I'll be studying and I'm researching the lived experiences and motivations of pro-Palestine activists during the current genocide. So I'm exploring why people in Southern Ontario, where I live, have decided to come out for Palestine at this time.
Interesting. Oh, that's super interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. When I was in, this was like a decade ago. It was forever ago, but I was in Israel, and this was when I was kind of like traveling through various areas, and not various areas of Israel, but it was going through like Egypt. I just so happened to cross into Israel in order to get to Jordan, et cetera. I kept moving that way. I ran into this woman who was Belgian Palestinian. And we went through, I think we were in Bethlehem, where she was working as an obstetrician. So she was helping this kind of prenatal clinic or natal clinic. Mm-hmm. And her thing was, I want you to see what this looks like. Basically, I want you to see what the reality is for people on the ground. Blew my mind. Mm-hmm. It just blew my mind. Yeah. They didn't treat me any particular way as an American. Of course, I had earrings, tattoos. They just said they would say like, he's an American, and it's like, oh, okay. And it would just be that.
Right.
One guy starts screaming at her because she didn't have her hijab on, and she turns around and attacks the guy. She was ferocious, and she was ferocious towards Israelis, but also to people who were trying to put her in a corner. Right. Even in the area. Oh, it was fascinating. As an American, you could just stroll through to get through the checkpoints. Mm-hmm. You could not do that. As Palestinians, that line was going back for hours.
Right.
The bus, criminal. At the time, they stopped the bus driver because he didn't have the correct papers, in which case they carted him away, took him in a van and carted him off. In perfect English, he says, hey, we apologize. Your next guy will come on. Like, it's a bizarre experience. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, dude, it's an apartheid state. And, they speak undeniable. English. No, please.
But it's undeniable that's apartheid. That's been documented not only by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, but Salem, which is an Israeli-based human rights organization. That organization says it's an apartheid state. So there's no denying it. A lot of world leaders want to deny it, but people around the world see it for what it really is.
Yeah. It's a hell of an experience. Mm-hmm. My ex-wife and I went once, and that was the first time she had ever been. She's not political. She's not into any of this stuff. I had a stick in my ass the entire time I was there because I was like, I do not want to be back here. I don't want to be spending money here. I don't want to be like, that was just my point of view at that point, right? Because at that point, I'm doing a channel. I'm doing news. And it was only when we left we went to the Holocaust Museum, and when we were on our way out, she says, if they came here, who was here before they got here? And it clicked, right? Like it finally dawned on her, like, oh, right, these guys with guns, there's a reason they have guns. Right. Oh, right, these people who go into these checkpoints, there's a reason that those things are there because somebody else was here when they got here. Like it's just a wild experience if anybody has ever the chance to go.
And there's the expression a lot of Zionists use, a people without land. What is it? A land without people and a people without land.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they don't consider Palestinians people.
Yeah.
750,000 Palestinians were driven out of Palestine when the state of Israel was created. Another 10,000 were killed at that time. It's 1948. and it's been ongoing ever since then, and it's been on steroids since October of 2023.
We have been pushing this for the last, I guess, year and a half that this was a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that we have gained a new ally on this front. And Lord knows if you've lost this guy, then you've lost the narrative. I'm going to play this clip for you, and I'm going to get your take on this. I'm fascinated by this, just at the turnaround, because this guy has fought this fight against this notion of this being a genocide. I mean, browbeating guests, say October 7th was horrible, say October 7th was horrible. And now Piers Morgan is saying this.
But you said there were 50,000 Hamas. Others have put the total figure at around 25,000, which begs the question, if after 18, 19 months now, you have been waging this ferocious war against 25, 26,000 terrorists, and you still haven't defeated them, your strategy is failing. How many children have you killed?
Piers, Israel is not
Well, how
killing
many?
children. Israel is not killing children. Hamas is using them as
Israel is
human
killing
shields.
children every single day. And what you're trying to do is be very weaselly with your words.
No, I'm not.
The truth is, you are killing a lot of children.
You
would
know
argue
that,
you're
you know why it's caused?
Hang on, let me
because
finish.
Hamas is using them as human shields, and you know
Let me
that.
finish my question to you. You are killing a lot of children on a daily basis. That is indisputable. My interesting question for you is, how come you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you have no idea how many children you've killed?
You've lost Piers Morgan.
Right.
Something's
You've
wrong.
lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
But his arguments, of course, are very good. And she's saying about Hamas using children as human shields. Children are being killed in apartment buildings where they're living with dozens of other families, and it's being bombed. That's not a human shield. And it's been documented that Israeli soldiers are using Palestinians as human shields. That's easily documented. So yeah, Piers Morgan coming around to this way of thinking, that is extraordinary, as you say.
Kicking and screaming, by the way, kicking and screaming.
Right,
Kicking and screaming the entire way. Talking about dragging a horse to the water. But what I brought you on, and bring you on for Piers. What I brought you on for was because there was this, I got annoyed on Twitter, and I often get annoyed on Twitter. I need to stop. But it came out that Witkoff, I'll just say Witkoff. I don't trust Witkoff at this point to save
Of course
my
not.
life. But Witkoff comes out. Initially, there was a deal, apparently, that was negotiated between the U.S. and Witkoff. Hamas agrees to the deal. Israel doesn't. Witkoff turns around and, of course, blames Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So apparently, they say, hey, guess what? We have a new deal. This is Witkoff with Trump putting the cart before the horse, I would argue, and announcing this deal coming up.
I think that we are on the precipice of sending out a new term sheet. Even later on today, the president is going to review it, and I have some very good feelings about getting to a long-term resolution, temporary ceasefire, and a long-term resolution, a peaceful resolution of that conflict.
All right. So right off the bat, temporary ceasefire, long-term resolution. All right. Now, when you go to Hamas, their document is weirdly enough different, because what they say that they agreed upon was this: permanent ceasefire. Drops like news, very top line. Permanent ceasefire, full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, immediate aid flow, appointment of professional committee to manage Gaza post-deal. The agreement also includes the release of 10 Israeli captives and several bodies in exchange for an agreed-upon number of Palestinian prisoners and mediator guarantees. Now, my issue with this is that this makes no sense. And it doesn't just make no sense to me from the standpoint of these two differences in the way Hamas is talking about it and the way Witkoff is talking about it. It's even the way Netanyahu has been talking. Netanyahu says they're not coming back. And in fact, Trump and Netanyahu are working together to put those people in pens. You could see it when the mercenaries or the Israeli soldiers, I don't know which one, was shooting at the hungry, starving people, that they were effectively using starvation in order to force those people into camps. Like, meaning these two things are contradictory to one another. And if it's contradictory, my assumption is that Israel is going to say, you're out of your mind. We've already said they're not coming back. We've already said that we're putting them in pens for the entire point of getting rid of them. So why are you saying that we are withdrawing Israelis from the region when we told you that we're not doing that? Give me a take on it. What am I missing on this? Am I missing something? That seems to be a complete contradiction between what Israel has been saying for the last, I don't know, several months versus what Witkoff and Hamas are saying that they've fundamentally agreed to, even though what Witkoff is saying is different than what Hamas is saying right off the bat.
It's the break is between the U.S. and Israeli positions in reality. The Palestinian people are never going to give up their country. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to agree to anything that says Israel will continue to indefinitely occupy Gaza, and the Palestinians in Gaza will be eventually moved out of the country to some other undisclosed location. This is not going to happen. Now, what Israel is saying, it's willing to do a temporary ceasefire to get some hostages back, because in Israel, there is a tremendous press, a lot of pressure on Israel and on Netanyahu and his government to bring the hostages home. People in Israel who are avowed Zionists and who hate Palestinians want this to end, want a ceasefire so the hostages can return. The right-wing government that Netanyahu leads, and that he has to rely on several of those extremely radical and racist members to keep him propped up, they don't want that. They don't care about the hostages. They just want all of Palestine. And so this is where there's a disconnect. This is not going to be resolved by the United States, which has Israel's best interests at heart and doesn't care about the Palestinians at all. The United States has never been and never will be an honest broker in the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Now, what we're going to be hearing in the next several days, when there's no deal, is that Hamas is not agreeing, that there's a deal on the table. Israel agrees, the United States says it's good, and Hamas, the terrorist group, is refusing. Well, what they're going to refuse is to give up their country to a foreign enemy that wants to kill those that are remaining. So they're not being unreasonable. They're rejecting a very, very unreasonable offer that no country's leader, no military leader, no political leader would ever agree to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think what's also being missed in this is Hamas has been trying to get a deal for the last, 6 months, if not longer. Mm-hmm. Like, they've gotten to the point where they are willing to accept almost anything. So it's not them that is rejecting this stuff. It is effectively, any fair deal they'll accept. Hell, any unfair deal they'll accept.
Well, as long as it doesn't give up their country. And,
right.
And who is the reasonable player here? There was a ceasefire deal during that time from January to about March. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians returned to the north because that was their home. They were driven out of. They thought, this is going to be the end. We can go back. We can start to rebuild. Mm-hmm. And then during the ceasefire, there was supposed to be further negotiations to bring about a permanent end to this, which would be withdrawal of the Israeli forces and the rebuilding of Gaza. Well, who violated that? It wasn't the Palestinians that violated it. It wasn't Hamas that violated it. It was Israel that violated it. And then added to the violation, the war crime of starvation as a weapon of war. And the world is sitting back and saying, oh, Israel, you shouldn't be doing that. Here's some more weapons to do it with.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Trump administration effectively looking the other way,
mm-hmm.
which is, I don't want to say game, but that's what the jig is up, right? I mean, if you always have a situation where it doesn't matter what Israel does, mm-hmm. it only matter, hell, it doesn't matter what Hamas does. If Israel says we don't want it, you're going to blame Hamas anyway. This is what Joe Biden was doing, and this is what Trump is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like we're going to come to a deal. We're going to agree upon a deal. We're going to shake hands on this deal. We're going to violate it, and we're not going to say anything about the fact that Israel is violating the deal. And then the same thing happens again. And we're not going to say anything about Israel violating the deal if it happens again. Meaning, you have this constant creep where it seems like the entire point of it is to move you further along the path that Israel wants, with the U.S. pretending as if it's doing deals, when in actuality, there seems to be a scheme running behind the scenes. I mean, and I don't even think it's behind the scenes at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. Trump has already said that the objective is to eject the people from the area. Netanyahu has said the objective is to eject the people out of the area. Starvation is just a tool that they're using to try to accomplish that objective with.
Right. And if the people won't leave, they'll die. So that's the choice that the United States and Israel are giving the people of Palestine in Gaza: leave or die. And this is not. How is that reason? How is that not a war crime? How is the rest of the Western world? We know Trump is completely off the rails. He always has been. But why is the rest of the world following along? Now, we have heard some very strong warnings from the German government, which is very surprising because the German government still thinks it needs to make amends for a government that hasn't been in office for 80 or 90 years. But the recent statements by German government officials are that Israel has to stop doing this and they're going to take action if it doesn't. Canada's saying the same thing. France is saying the same thing. But talk is cheap. They have to do some actions. You can't look to the United States. As I mentioned earlier, the United States is not, never has been, and never will be an honest broker in this situation. Other countries need to step forward and take concrete, definite steps to stop Israel from what it's doing. This is sanctions. This is further no further complete arms embargo. Cutting business ties, cutting academic ties, making the Israeli economy, which is in big trouble as it is, but really collapsing it. So the people are going to force their own government to take action. But they're trying, some of them, there have been massive demonstrations in Israel and Tel Aviv and other cities for months now. Mm-hmm. But the government, Netanyahu wants to stay out of prison. And if he leaves government, then he'll go to trial. The trial's been kind of ongoing, but he's been too busy for it, too busy committing genocide. So other countries in the world have to take action. They're not. As I said, talk is cheap. They've got to do something.
I am curious on your take on this. Why do you think that Europe has come around? I mean, look, let's be honest. The starvation thing has been going on for months. I mean, even going back to the Biden administration. Yes. If you remember, just before the DNC convention, Joe Biden said something to the effect of, basically, he was trying to get a deal at the last minute, so he can go out on stage and says, excuse me, look at this deal that I've received. Look at this deal that I've been able to accomplish. And even before that, though, part of the thing that he was trying to do is say, okay, well, we want, I think he said 300 trucks coming in. Now, 300 trucks wasn't even going to be enough, but that's what the Biden administration was trying to get them to agree to. They got like 30 at the most.
Right.
And so I guess my point is, even the U.S. government at that point was writing reports talking about Palestinians being starved. Mm-hmm. And the Biden administration under Blinken basically put the kibosh on that report. Those people quit in protests. Mm-hmm. My point is, this starvation has been going on for months on end. It hasn't just started. So why is Europe Johnny come lately and it's like, oh, it seems that you are now starving the Palestinians. They've been starving them. So why now are they all of a sudden piping up with complaints?
A couple of points I want to make. Apparently, a few days ago, 8 trucks were let in. 8 trucks for 2.5 million starving people. So now, what we're seeing in news reports, there's been an easing of the blockade. 8 trucks is an insult. It's ridiculous. No. But as far as why the European countries are finally coming around, if you look at the reactions of people in these countries, there have been massive demonstrations continually. When the genocide started in October 2023, that might have been expected, but they have not stopped. In London, hundreds of thousands, up to 1 million people demonstrating. This is happening in France and Canada, where I live. There are constant demonstrations. And also surveys in Germany show that the sympathy of the German people is with the Palestinians, no longer with the Israelis. So this is the German government has got to finally say, if we want to stay in power, there's going to be an election at some point in the future, and we've got to do what the people want us to do. And financing and endorsing and supporting genocide is not on their list. So I think that's where we're seeing a change. The people in the world have so much power and they just don't know it.
So you think effectively the governments are responding to public will?
Well, they're starting to. If they were responding, there'd be arms embargoes instead of just talks of arms embargoes. But at least it's a start. But while this is starting, Palestinians are still dying of starvation, still being burned to death in their tents by bombs. They're being bombed in hospitals, in UN refugee centers, in schools. The journalists continue to be slaughtered. So Germany, France, Canada, and other countries are starting to speak up strongly. But speaking up strongly doesn't count. What counts is action.
See, I don't buy that they are speaking. Okay. Yes, they are saying stuff, but so did Joe Biden say stuff. So did Trump. Oh my God, the Palestinians. It's so horrible to see people die of starvation. Okay, yeah, but dude, you're paying for that starvation.
Exactly.
70, 80%. So how can I take you as being serious when you say, oh my God, the starvation is so bad, right? Like, I don't know if I take what they're saying seriously. I think what's going on is they are responding to what the public sentiment changing. But I think they're responding in the same way that Joe Biden was dealing with the Democrats, with this kind of image management of, we like our little European-esque colony in the Middle East. We like that. We want that colony to expand. We know what it's like to have colonies because we're Europe. We had colonies all over the world, right? America, hell, that's a colony. Australia, India, all of these places were colonies. And so we get the brutal realities of what it means to colonize a certain area. And we're okay with that. However, our public is not. And so we need to give some kind of image management for that. Like, meaning, I don't buy that the leaders of these countries that have watched all of this play out for over, a year and a half, 2 years, every day on social media, and all of a sudden has now come to the conclusion, you know what? We think starvation at this level is too far. I don't buy the premise.
I don't buy the premise either. I think they still don't care. They want the things you want. They like having that European-like colony in the Middle East. They get intelligence, they get technological advances and so on, and they like that. It's especially for the United States, it's an entity that will keep an eye on other Middle Eastern countries and let them know what's happening. They don't want to give that up. They don't care about human rights. They don't care about international law. Even the current German leadership has said during a recent election they would invite Netanyahu to their country, despite the fact that by law, if he sets foot in Germany, they should arrest him.
Yep.
Because there's a warrant for his arrest. But they said they're going to violate that. So what does it say about international law? But also these countries that are making statements, as you said, image management, which I think is a good term for that, because they want to show their people, the voters, oh, we are doing something. Yes, we hear you. We feel you. We feel your pain, this sort of thing. And then they can say, oh, because of our statements, there are more trucks coming into Gaza now. Yeah, 8.
All 8 of them.
all 8 of them, right? Which is, it's an insult. So this is, I hope the public isn't going to buy it. They're going to say, 8 trucks, they need thousands every day coming in. And when people like Trump say, oh, we're working with the Israelis and encouraging them to bring in more humanitarian aid, that, as you said, has no validity to it because the United States is financially supporting the deprivation of the Palestinians, food for the Palestinians, financially supporting the bombs. It's giving Israel the bombs it needs. During the Biden administration, billions of dollars in bombs.
Yes.
More bombs have been dropped on Gaza, the tiny area of Gaza, than were dropped during the entirety of World War II by all sides.
That is hard to wrap your head around, by the way.
It is. And these 2.5 million people have nowhere to go. And all they can do is wait to die.
How many people live in Germany? at the time of the Second World War, we're talking about millions of people.
Yeah.
And this is more bombs being dropped on 2 million people in a pen, no less, like in a
Nowhere to go.
concentrated open-air ghetto than was over all of Germany during the Second World War. That is hard to wrap your head around.
There are no safe shelters. There is no place that is safe. With people that I'm in contact with in Gaza, when I go online with them on Facebook or some other social media platform, and I can hear the drones, I can hear the bombs, and this is what they have to live with on a daily basis, and they don't know if the next one's going to be on their tent.
Robert, thank you for this great breakdown. Robert Fantina, I want to make sure I get that right.
Perfect.
It's somebody who names get butchered. That's why I've spent time trying to get it right. Robert Fantina.
Yes.
He is an author, journalist, art activist working on peace and social justice. He's the author of the new book, Settler Colonialism in Palestine and Kashmir. He is working on his PhD. Soon I'm going to be calling him Dr. Fantina. I look forward to that. You have a good one, man. You be safe, okay?
Thank you. You too.
No, thank you. Have a good one.